Former Vice President Kamala Harris is out with a new book and pulling no punches, even when it comes to her fellow Democrats. She criticizes Josh Shapiro, Pete Buttigieg, and Gavin Newsom, who were potential VP contenders, expresses frustration with running mate Tim Walz, and airs behind-the-scenes tension with President Biden. Harris writes that shortly before she took the stage to debate Donald Trump, Biden called her to say he heard she had been bad-mouthing him. And she says he then went on about his own debate performances. According to the AP, she wrote, "I just couldn't understand why he would call me right now and make it all about himself." Well, joining me now, Michael Hardaway, former communications director and spokesman for Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. So welcome, my friend. Michael, having watched this whole campaign play out in real time, do any of the revelations that we have heard from Harris's new book, 107 Days, surprise you?
I've not read this book, but we can't have revisionist history. Let's take a step back and go back to July of 2024. When Joe Biden gave her the ball on the 5-yard line, it really was the greatest gift that any political candidate could ask for, which is a 3-month campaign, inheriting a billion-dollar donor network and a national infrastructure. And so as we have this conversation about the handoff and whether Biden should have run or should not have run, I think we have to be honest about where things were when she took over. The other part of that is that she was up in nearly every single poll over Donald Trump when her campaign began. I don't know what her dynamic was with Joe Biden, but I will say this. As that campaign started, she was ahead of Donald Trump in nearly every poll. I think that writing that book right now is not helpful for us as a party or really for a country where we need to be as united as possible and taking on the parade of horribles forced on us by Donald Trump. And so I just don't really see the point of releasing this, which obviously could be divisive for many people in such a critical time for our country.
So let me ask you about the way this is being interpreted. Do you think she is burning bridges, or is this just politics? I mean, either way, does she not care today, at least?
Yeah, I think she clearly wanted to get her story out, and she wanted people to know what she was thinking and what happened behind the scenes. That's fair. I just don't think the timing is great in terms of all the other more important things we're dealing with, but she clearly wanted everyone to know what happened behind the scenes in that conversation. I'll also say this. I mean, from a Democratic perspective, if Joe Biden never ran and there was a primary, it wasn't guaranteed that she would or anyone else would be our candidate. That would have been a hard-fought primary, as was the 2020 primary that she wasn't victorious in. And so, as we look at what happened during the campaign, let's look at the whole thing and just be honest. And also say to ourselves, is this conversation healthy and helpful in a time like this?
You make an interesting point there, because we've seen blowback from people that were named in this book. And these are people of whom you're speaking. They may have thrown their hat in the ring and run against her. Harris does write that Pete Buttigieg would be too risky as her running mate. And then he told Politico he gives Americans more credit than that. And she also criticized Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, who fired right back.
She's going to have to answer to how she was in the room and yet never said anything publicly. I can tell you that I wasn't in the room, but when I was confronted with engagement with the former president, I was very vocal with him privately and extremely vocal with his staff about my concerns about his fitness to be able to run for another term.
So look, is there an argument that this is actually what the party needs right now, that it is exposing a rift that's been under the surface this entire time, which can now be addressed and potentially fixed?
No, these are just personal attacks and sort of attacks on individuals. What the party needs to fix is its messaging strategy and the way that we communicate with people and reevaluate how we engage with certain groups like men and others. That's what needs to happen. The idea of pointing fingers and attacking each other isn't really helpful. I'll just say this to you. I once had a football coach that gave me the best advice ever that they all could benefit from right now, which is the end result is all that matters. Whether you won or whether you lost, if you didn't win, you shouldn't blame others for not winning. You have to look at yourself and figure out what you didn't do correctly. I'll also say, look, as we reevaluate where we are as a party and we ask ourselves how we can move forward in this current era, it is important that we're both honest and we're both unified in terms of how we come to those things. I just don't think that pointing the finger at each other is helpful in this era.
Okay, Michael Hardaway, I'll see you this weekend, my friend. Thank you so much.